has been 4 years since we moved to Kansas City from Los Angeles, California, and here are 5 ways that Kansas City is completely different than California. Now, if you stay until the very end, I'm going to add a bonus 6th reason why Kansas City is different than California.
You're welcome!
It may or may not apply to you, so make sure you watch until the very end. The first way is that driving in downtown Kansas City is entirely different than driving in any highly populated Californian city.
This traffic sucks, huh?
Let me share a story with you from 4 years ago when we first moved here. We were looking for a coffee shop just to kind of explore the city, to relax, and we were recommended to go to this coffee shop called Messenger Coffee. We were specifically instructed to go to the one on Grand Boulevard in downtown Kansas City. And when we were driving there, we overshot it and had to turn around. It was so bizarre driving in downtown Kansas City and being able to just pull a U-turn and find parking on the street and not have to pay more than $20. And let me tell you, it was so bizarre to be able to just pull a U-turn on a busy street in downtown, where that maneuver on a Saturday morning in downtown Los Angeles would have definitely at least gotten you honked at. You probably would be blocking traffic and there would be no way that you could pull that maneuver off. So we made a U-turn, and then we also found parking on the street that we didn't have to pay for.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Which is unheard of in Los Angeles. So driving down here is entirely different. Now, it's different in a good way in that there's not as much traffic, but it's also different in a bad way, in that you have to drive in the snow. Let me tell you another story from just this past week. We were coming back from Topeka, Kansas after visiting a friend for Thanksgiving. While we were driving to Topeka, it started to snow. It's the first real snow of the season here in the Kansas City area, and it started to snow right around 3 o'clock. Now at 6 o'clock when we were leaving Topeka, the roads were extremely slick and it was extremely difficult to maneuver the car. In fact, our car did fishtail a couple of times. It was a minor fishtail. We managed to get it under control, but that is completely, entirely different than living in Los Angeles, California. Now, before I get to the number 2 reason why Kansas City and California are entirely different, if you're considering moving here to Kansas City, whether from California or anywhere else, we help people move here all of the time, so please give us a call. 816-4MOVE-KC is our number. You can call or text us anytime, and we would be happy to help you relocate here to Kansas City, either on the Missouri side or the Kansas side. We did it ourselves 4 years ago, and we love it here despite all of the differences. So if you want to talk about relocating to Kansas City, give us a call, 816-4MOVE-KC, or send us an email. Reach out and we promise we will get back to you within a day. Now, speaking of these snowy roads, the weather here is entirely different than California.
Really?
Yeah.
Right now it is late November, early December. We just had our first snow of the year, and it is completely unheard of, especially where I'm from in Los Angeles, to have any snow at all. And so if you're thinking of relocating here, either from California or somewhere else where it doesn't snow a lot, you're gonna have to get used to the snow. The days consistently now are about 30 degrees, and if you wanna know more about the Kansas City weather, we have a whole video about that, so go ahead and check that video out. And while you're at it, please subscribe to this channel for more information about living here in Kansas City. Not only does it get much colder than California here, which is why I have to dress in my really cool jacket. I don't know if you like it. You can leave a comment below if you don't, or leave a comment below if you think that this is pretty fresh, because I actually think this is pretty dope. But there are actual seasons here. My yard is covered in leaves. I'm going to leave it that way because I do not want to rake up the leaves. I might mulch them after the snow gets off the ground. The fall, when the leaves change and all the leaves fall, that's going to be something different than a lot of places in California where most of the trees are going to be evergreen. The summers here are going to be a lot more humid than the summers in California. I would say that it feels a good 10 to 15 degrees hotter than the stated temperature here because of the humidity in the summer.
What a bummer.
Now, just like in California, the summer brings long, lazy days. One of the things that we found was so different here is that there are so many places in Kansas City that close early. I remember when we first moved here and we went shopping right about 7 o'clock. We were surprised going out to the Country Club Plaza that a lot of those places were already closed. There were only a few places that we could visit, whereas the malls in California stay open at least until 9 or 10 p.m. because there are a ton of people out shopping at those times. Here in the Midwest, it's going to be a lot different. A lot of places close at 5:30. One of the craziest things that it took me a long time to get used to is that a lot of the coffee shops here close at 5 or 6 p.m., which if you're moving from the West Coast, coffee shops stay open until like 11 o'clock p.m. or even midnight in some places, or even sometimes later. Like I was mentioning to you before, Messenger Coffee closes at 5 p.m. So if you want to get off work and go to some place and write or read, that's not going to be a local coffee shop.
Where's the girl? I need a cup of coffee.
I mean, there are some that close just a little bit later, but 9 p.m. is about as late as you'll find coffee shops open here in Kansas City. So that's something that you're going to have to get used to, especially if you're used to going out, partying in the late night, and doing all that kind of stuff, is that things around here close surprisingly early. Yet another reason why Kansas City is different than California is the Midwest friendliness. People here are exceedingly kind and friendly, and that's a great thing. Now, again, this is not to say that people in California are not kind and that people in California are not friendly.
How rude!
But I do think that when you cram that much people in that tight of a space, especially in Los Angeles, where you have however many million people crammed in a very small area, that sitting in traffic and the hustle and bustle of living in a big city on the West Coast can make people pretty jaded with interpersonal relationships. Now, let me share with you a short story from when I first moved out to Kansas City. One of the cashiers that was bagging my groceries was trying to chat with me and genuinely ask questions about me and my family. At the time, my son was really young. She had just found out that we had moved out here, and she was asking questions about why we moved out here and where we were from and how we were adjusting to the Midwest so far. And I found myself thankful for her friendliness, but also kind of antsy. I found myself saying, hey lady, like, let's get these things moving. We have places to go. And I kind of realized that that mentality was the West Coast mentality in me, because living in California, you always have places to go because you're going to be sitting in traffic wherever you go. And the quicker you can get out of that grocery store, or the quicker you can get back to your car and on the road, the less traffic you'll have to deal with. And I kind of realized that I had brought that West Coast Californian hustle and bustle mentality with me to the Midwest, and I just needed to calm down and slow down.
Slow down, squirt!
Because I'm living in somewhere that's a completely different pace of life than California now. Speaking of pace of life, that leads us to the fifth reason that Kansas City is so different than California, and that is the utility services here. The utility services here are way less efficient than the ones in California. There are going to be times where our trash does not get picked up on the designated day, and the trash sits out there for another day or two. And you know what? When your trash sits out there in a day for another day or two, especially given the fact that Kansas City for some reason does not provide us with trash bins to keep our trash in, it's just sitting out there in plastic bags. The squirrels start getting into it, the possums start getting into it. It can be super disgusting. Another thing that we noticed in moving here to Kansas City is our mail very rarely comes on time. I sign up for something with USPS that gives me advanced notice of what kind of mail is going to be dropped into my mailbox that day. And you know what I noticed? It almost never comes that day. It always comes a day or two behind. I don't know if that's the pace of life for the mailman, just kind of saying, hey, you know what? We didn't get all this stuff done today. We're going to go get it done tomorrow. I don't know. I really, truly don't know. But I can tell you, when I was living in Los Angeles, the mail was a lot more prompt. The trash people were a lot more prompt. And the rest of the utilities were a lot easier to deal with. So that's going to be something that was different for me. There were just a lot more things that were more efficient in California than here. Now, you stayed until the end of the video, and I'm going to give you reason number 6 why Kansas City is a lot different than California, and that is there are a lot more Asians in California than in Kansas City, especially in the Los Angeles area. My wife and I live in a neighborhood where we probably are the only Asian family in this entire neighborhood. Now, we can't prove that. We haven't gone door to door, and we love our neighborhood, so this is not a complaint. But when we lived in California, there's a lot more diversity in general and a lot more Asian people in particular. So if that's important to you, then you may want to reconsider moving here to Kansas City. And if you want to know more about what it's like being an Asian person in Kansas City, watch this video.